Please welcome the incredible Cathryn Lavery.
Hi, so great to be here.
Oh, thank you so much for finally connecting.
Yeah, we've been
I feel
trying
like
to do this for a while.
I know I've been chasing you for a long time. Yeah, and I was just thinking about when I first met you. We were in a restaurant in New York City
Yeah,
for
when
lunch.
I met Dan well, actually, I didn't meet. Did you hear the story of how Dan and I connected?
No.
So we both went to Business Mastery, the Tony Robbins conference, and this was in 2015 or 2014 or 2015. And afterwards, I just wrote up like a blog post about it. Just like, here's everything I learned. And I'd posted it on Twitter. And then Dan saw it and was like, oh, I went to this and I was going to do a whole review on it, but I love yours. So let's like connect. And that's how we connected. And then the next time he was in New York, we had a dinner with his founders dinner. And that's how it all started. And
That's
then we
crazy.
got connected
So
at lunch.
that business mastery wasn't it like 25th December 2015, or maybe it was like in the wintertime, I think. Anyway,
Yeah,
I actually paid for Dan and I both to go to that event.
that's awesome.
Yeah. Through my business. And we had just done Date with Destiny a month prior. So we like overdosed on Tony. And you
Oh,
can do
yeah.
it. You can't overdose on Tony.
Yeah, once you get
um,
on the Tony train, it's the next 2 years of your life is just Tony.
I know, right? You're like, high five, give a neighbor, it's a random person, give them a hug and a high five.
Yeah. Say
But
yes.
Tony, say yes. Tony's so transformational. The first time I did it, Date with Destiny, I was like, who are these whack jobs jumping up and down? Why is everyone hugging each other? This is so weird.
Yeah.
And then I did the business mastery, but then doing Date with Destiny again this past December, because I knew what to expect, was a game changer.
I
Total
actually
game changer.
still do Date with Destiny. I have a ticket for it. I just haven't been able to schedule it.
Yeah, so much fun. Okay, so tell us, what do you do and who do you do it for?
Uh, my name's Cathryn, and I started a company called BestSelf, and we created tools to help people become the best version of themselves. So it started very like type A productivity. I have ADHD, so I would just create frameworks to help me work better. And that's kind of how Best Self started, is like, oh, let me create a journal to help you like figure out a goal and break it down. So you don't really have to recreate the wheel every day of what you have to do, sort of the success principles that I would read in all these books. But I'm like, okay, but what do I do tomorrow? And so it kind of started there. And then as it sort of grew, I realized, wait, there's probably more to life than just being productive. There's like relationships with your partner, with your kids. Yeah, I didn't have kids at the time, but I basically got to a point where I was thinking, I was going through all this stuff in my personal life. I was getting divorced at the time, but my business was going great, and I wasn't happy. And I'm like, wait, I thought this was the thing. And so that's when I sort of pivoted Best Self to look at, okay, what if your best self is not your most productive self, but your whole life? Like, what does your best self mean to you? And then we started going into relationships and things like that.
I love it. And what are the products that you offer?
The productivity products is the self journal. The relationship products, we have a relationship journal where you work with your partner over 13 weeks to go through different exercises. So you figure out your love languages, and you figure out, how to show love to each other and what you actually receive. And it's basically like an operating system for your relationship if you need it. And then we also have tools like the intimacy deck, which is just a card game. And that was actually the first product that we came out with in the relationship category, which is just a prompt set to talk to your partner about. And the reason why I did that was it's actually kind of a looks like a game, but it's so much more powerful, because I don't know if in your relationship, if you've ever asked your partner a question, you have the question and then you have the story in your head about like, okay, why are they asking me that question? Whereas if you have a card set, you don't have that dialogue in the background of like, okay, like, why is she asking me that? What does it mean? It's just like, blame the cards. The cards ask you that question. And so you're more likely to both not be as defensive as you might be if someone was just asking you this random question out of nowhere. And you can also talk about things that you might never have talked about because it just didn't happen to come up.
I think we have this card deck.
I sent it to you. So
okay, give
a
me
while
1 second.
ago.
I'm gonna go pull it out of the drawer. I know I have it in here somewhere. 1 second. Ha! That was easy. There it is.
Oh, nice. You kept it.
Yeah. We have it. I'm like, I know. And okay, I'm going to just pull out a card here. What you really need to understand about me and sex is, well, that's
Well,
probably
so
not
that's
the best
the red questions or the sex questions. The rest of the deck you could actually play with like friends, but the red
okay.
questions
This is cool. So
are
you have
categorized.
There's 6 categories: past, random, life, relationship, intimacy, and about you. I love this. Okay, let's just put out a random question. And I want you to answer this. Don't worry. It won't be a sex question. No, I don't want to ask that question. Let's see what's relevant here. Life. Is life green? Life is green. My God, I should use these for my podcast. This is great. Okay, what are 3 places in the world you want to visit?
Oh, I feel like I want to revisit Japan again. I've been before, but I want to go again because it's just incredible. Bali, because I feel like I'm the only person on the internet that has not been to Bali.
I have not been to Bali.
And Portugal, because I've had 2 trips planned, but because of COVID, I haven't been able to make it.
Yeah, we were just there. It's beautiful. Okay, and then last question from your deck for now. What's currently keeping you up at night or causing you stress?
My daughter. As far as keeping me up at night. Otherwise I sleep pretty well.
I love it. Oh, I know. I actually got probably one of the highest scores on my Aura ring the other night. And I feel like I said to somebody, if I had to be in the dating world again, that would be my flex. I'd be like, my profile picture would be my high sleep score. My line would be like, let's dream together, baby.
Let's take magnesium together.
Yeah, exactly.
Go to bed.
Yep. I love it. Okay. So this company, BestSelf Co. But this intimacy deck is kind of a newer product, but you started out with a journal. Is that right? So
yeah, I mean, the intimacy deck's been around since 2018 or 2019.
Okay. Wow.
But we started in productivity, but we actually, the business got acquired at the end of last year, but by the time it got acquired, that was selling more than our productivity products that we started with.
Wow. Interesting.
So it's been an interesting journey because we started, I think a lot of businesses, they start with one product and they sort of marry this product. And, Tony Robbins talked about this idea of like falling in love with your customer, not your product. And so I remember in like 2017, I was looking at our revenue and like 86% of it came from one product, which was scary because I'm like, okay, this could go away tomorrow. And what will we do? And so I started thinking like, okay, we need to diversify. And I did it wrong when I first started to think diversify because I am thinking, okay, we need more products to drive more revenue. And oftentimes when you're thinking, okay, more products, it takes a while to come up with like a meaningful product that will actually help people. And it's really, really easy to come up. So I'll go back. And it's really easy to come up with what I call Me Too products, which are just like products that anyone can create that maybe you could put your like logo on or something like that. And so I came up with this idea of like tier A, tier B, and tier C products. And tier A products are products that people will search you out for and they will come to you. And it's kind of like your flagship products. And tier B products are products that help tier A. So it could be like for a while, it was like we had a leather cover for our journal, which was high price point because it was like real leather, but no one's coming to just buy a cover for a product they don't have. And then tier C are just brand related products. So it's like a hoodie or a jump or a t-shirt or a hat with your logo on it. It's like nobody's buying those products if they don't know you and already love you, and they're not going to love you unless you have great TRA products. And so we started kind of going down that route, but we went the wrong way at the start. It was like, oh, let's come up with a laptop case and a hoodie and like all this stuff. And it got to the point where like we were going into production and I'm thinking, would I buy any of this stuff? Like, would I want this? And when I looked at it, I'm like, no. So why are we selling it? Like, we're bootstrapped. Why are we wasting resources on stuff that's like not going to change anyone's lives or make any sort of impact? It's just like, yeah, maybe we'll sell it. And so I ended up like kind of putting a stop to it. And I also changed some stuff within the company because we used to do like product marketing meetings every week where the product team and the marketing team would kind of get together. And I was like, we're scrapping this. We're doing it once a month, because what happens when you have that, like every week is too short of a time scale to actually get any work done and to get any sort of deep thought into product. And if we're feeling like, okay, we have to give the marketing team something in a week, then you're not really going to go deep on anything because you're not going to be able to show anything in a week. And so I changed this, that the product team were meeting to brainstorm and work every week or like a few times and just jumping on calls. But the marketing product did not get together until like every month. And then we could actually like have something good. And that's kind of where we started going down the route of, okay, what other products could we create? And that ended up becoming a bigger category than what we started with. But I think it really it's difficult if you're so like, the business you're in right now and the business that you need to be in, and constantly like making sure that you're separating that out. And I didn't want to be like the journal company. Like if you're a hammer, everything's a nail. And how we came up with what became the decks, the intimacy deck, the first idea was like we had literally a blank notebook. This is actually the product. And we wanted to sell more of them, which is just like a blank moleskin, but it was our version of it. And so I'm thinking like, okay, why would people not buy this? Like we talk about journaling, but where do they struggle? And one of the things I'd heard from people is like, they don't know where to start. So it's like you hear all the great things about journaling, but then you sit down to a blank page and you don't know where to start. So then I'm thinking, okay, what if we could give them like prompts in different areas of their life that would prompt them to start journaling and like learning about themselves and reflecting. And then of course, like, oh, should we do a journal with prompts in it? That was the first thing. And then I'm thinking use case. Okay, like what if I open this journal and there's a prompt at the top, but I don't really feel like writing about that day? Do I like skip to the next page? But then I have a blank page. And I don't know about you, but like I don't want to deal with like a journal with like random pages that are blank.
I hate that.
Yeah. So I was like, that's not really going to work. And then came up with the idea of like cards where you can just pick any card and you can journal about that. And so that was the first idea. Was we came up with a deck called the Edison deck, which was coming up with ideas. The Hemingway deck, which was about writing, which we changed the name of because I guess we weren't allowed to do that. And a prompts around making decisions and how to make better decisions. And so when we came out with them, they did really well. And then I'm on a product call with my team and we're just like, okay, these did really well. Like, let's just brainstorm. And we ended up being like, wait, people do more than like journal and sort of come up with ideas. It's just like have conversation. And so then it started like, okay, what are the areas in our lives that we could all benefit from like more intention around our conversation? And so then it became your intimate relationships, your relationship with your kids, and then your relationships with your like friends and community. And so that became the next category. And then we sort of went deeper from there. But that's how it all started.
Yeah, it started with a pretty amazing Kickstarter campaign. When was that campaign?
August 2015.
Okay. Oh, wow. So that was right when Dan and I got married.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then we would have done business mastery not that long afterwards.
I had no idea that you had not been married that long.
No, I didn't want to get married. He knows this, so we can talk about this publicly because it's being recorded right now.
Okay.
um, I'm glad we did, though. It's very special. But this is cool. So I went down a little rabbit hole of creating products in my life too. So prior to We Wild Women, I was running a business that helped entrepreneur couples kind of connect. It turned out to me being more of a therapist, and I did not want to do this type of work. But in those moments, I created a couple products. One was the Be Present box
Mm-hmm.
to teach people how to be more connected. So the whole idea was that the box comes with bracelets, a notebook, and a pen. And it's big enough to hold your phone. So the idea is that you put your phone in the box, then you put your bracelet on, and that's to remind yourself and the people around you that I'm here to be present with you and I'm not going to be on any electronics. And it worked for me, but I actually created this box for my husband. Didn't really work for him. And then I created a family conversation deck. And so this was like 52 cards of questions. And the reason why I created this is because I had having so many issues in getting my kids to sit and eat a full meal at the table. They were always like squirrely and
Yeah.
they wanted to get up and go and play. They were done eating and they weren't really hungry. So I thought, what are some questions that I could be asking me? So I kind of threw out questions on a piece of paper, printed it out, cut it up, and I made a little pile. And then we used it over and over again to the point where Dan was just like, hey, why don't you go get these made into official card deck? And so I
Yeah.
did. And it was great. However, after a while, the same 52 questions become kind of boring. Like, would you
Right.
rather live in a teepee or an igloo?
Right.
It's like, I don't think your decision or your mind's going to be changed every week. But all this to say is, and I'm going to lead up to a question, is I created these products. I thought products sold themselves. And I realized there's so much more that goes into selling a physical product than a service-based product for many different reasons. It's very quite complicated. And I almost want to say there's a very clear line in the business world between businesses that are service-based and businesses that are physical product space because it is pretty, I don't know how to say it, gnarly because marketing is constant. Volume is the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
Service-based businesses, especially if you have a high-ticket item, it's not necessarily about volume. It's more about the quality of the customers that you're closing. But with these products, in a way, it's not like you really care who you're selling it to, but you do. It's just that as long as you're selling it.
Yeah.
So you started this Kickstarter. Did you ever do product before?
No, but I was an architect. Actually, no, I did do a product before. I used to be an architect, so I'm used to like designing buildings and furniture and things. So I knew how to like take an idea and make it real. And in my thesis at university, I was on the like every year the school puts out, it's basically like kind of like a yearbook of sorts. And I was on the team that did that. So I learned about like different binding styles and printing. And this was kind of like a small business because we had to come up with the content, come up with the like actually design it and lay it out. Then we had to get sponsors to sponsor like ads in it, like, you know, local places so that we could actually have money to print it. And then we would sell it afterwards to the students. And so I learned if I think back to that few years in architecture school, I'm like, that was one of the most crucial things because then when it came time to design a journal, I'm like, well, I already know like what binding I would use and like how to lay out pages and literally all of this stuff. And so for a long time, I was doing what I laid out in the journal in an empty moleskin. I would just like write it every day. And then it got to a point where I was just like, oh, this is annoying. Let me design something. And then I'm like printing it. And I'm like, okay, let me just create a book version of this. And so that's kind of how it started. And when I went to see how much it would cost to, you know, print this thing, I was like, okay, I need to do it in bulk because it doesn't make sense any other way. And so I was kind of showing it to friends and they were like, okay, I'll take one too. So that's ended up becoming the Kickstarter. But before that, I had a design like apparel Shopify store. So on the side of my architecture job in 2012, I set up a Shopify store. And so that was kind of like my cash flow business for a few years. And then before I started Best Self. So I'm pretty much been slinging some version of paper for like 10 years.
Wow. Okay. Yes. Because diving into it without really educating oneself is very intimidating. Um, Going through for me, the hardest part outside of the marketing was just finding the right manufacturer
Oh yeah.
and building those relationships. Oh man, what a headache. But I want to go back really quickly to the Kickstarter. So at the time of this recording, we're prepping for in October. What we're doing is the Master Your Marketing Mindset series, but I feel like I want to drip some of the marketing stuff in here now because you crushed a Kickstarter. And had you ever done one before?
So I'd done one with my previous business, which was just like again like posters and apparel, and I learned how to do it through that, which is why actually I think I mean I didn't get anywhere near the what I got the self journal. So I think the first one I did it was like 25 grand. The second one I did was maybe 50 or 60, and then when I launched Best Self, the reason I wanted to do Kickstarter is because like the other products I did was super niche and like I was just kind of figuring it out as I went. Like I literally from the first Kickstarter I did, someone told me about Kickstarter, and in 2 weeks I launched the project. Because I was just so used to like I would just launch the project to my. I was really good at like creating and not good at the distribution part where I would like already be mentally checked out for the next thing by the time I'm like trying to sell this thing. And so that's why I tried Kickstarter. And then by the time I was doing the self journal, I was like, well, I literally can't afford to print less than 1,000 of these. So let me try this again and just put like more work on the front end. So probably like 3 months to launch the self journal on Kickstarter. And our
Yeah.
goal was 15,000 in I think 34 days, and we hit 322,000.
Nice. Wow. Okay. So I had supported in my agency days a couple Kickstarters. One was a watch that was made from whiskey barrels called Single Grain. And they were at the time the fastest funded fashion Kickstarter. And that was like our big claim to fame. The
Wow.
work that went into that, though, it was at least 4 months worth of work. And
Yeah.
and our focus was just the PR side of things, but we were really involved in like the content for the videos and how and who was going to endorse it and the influencers. And it was crazy, but I don't even know I think in the first week they got to like 250,000. And
Nice.
then by the time they were done, it was like $450,000. And
Yeah.
yeah, that, I mean, it's impressive, but people think, and I get pitched all the time, hey, can you help me with my Kickstarter? It started yesterday and we need to
Oh,
reach our goal. Like, no, it takes time. Like essentially when you hit publish on the Kickstarter, for the most part, the work is already done.
yeah.
The work is
I,
done.
and I tell people like, it's not build it and they will come. You really have to send people to it ahead of time. So we built an email list of 3,000 people prior to launch. And one thing I would say is, once you start showing that you're a product that people will support, Kickstarter will start, showing you on their front page and things like that. But they're not going to show you unless you've kind of proved yourself to them. And another thing is that we're selling it was like $22 product or something like that at the time, 25. And I see if there's some mistakes I see people make all the time. One is their goal is just outrageous. It's just insane. Like your goal has to be related to the product that you have. So if you are coming out with like a 3D printer model thing, yeah, I'm like, yeah, they should totally be raising like 200K. That makes sense. But some guy came up to me once and he's like, yeah, I tried Kickstarter, it just didn't work for me. I'm like, well, what was it? He's like, oh, it was my book. And I'm like, how much did you ask for? He's like, 120,000. And I'm like, yeah, if we had asked for 120,000 for a journal, I bet we wouldn't have hit our goal. So you have to like you want to hit your goal early, and then you can add bonuses to keep,
People come back.
increasing like the what a backer gets, and people also want to be on the winning train. Like But even though they get their money back if you don't hit your goal, like people don't want to feel like you're not going to hit your goal, so they might wait. And so there's all these like strategies. I actually did a whole blog post on how we launched our product, but like you have to do early bird things. You really have to like strategically plan your Kickstarter and like what people are getting when and why they're going to give you money early. And then also don't complicate your rewards. So like the thing in your video is the thing people want, right? So it's like the thing, 2 of the thing, 3 of the thing. It's like bundles of the thing. And so many times I see people like, oh, here's a t-shirt with the name of our company, or like a hat with the name of our company. I'm like, nobody wants that because nobody knows who you are. And you're just complicating your rewards. So now, instead of just focusing on making the very best version of the thing, you are now like, oh, I have to find a t-shirt manufacturer and a hat manufacturer that nobody even wants anyway.
I know. The bundles are so like all this stuff, but even outside of Kickstarter, the preparation for announcements, launches, anything takes so much effort. But especially Kickstarter, because what really sells people, what I learned in experience in supporting companies doing Kickstarters is the video is huge.
Yeah.
And the video isn't just like standing in front of a camera and just talking about your product. There has to be the story. There has to be this feeling and emotion.
Yeah.
And most people don't know how to do that. And then on top of that, it's lining up those bonuses. So essentially how it works, it's like tiered. Like if you support one, you get this, or you can fund the next tier and you get 2 journals. And then, and it does have to make sense. It can't be something silly. You have to sell what people want.
Yeah, like your mom will support you probably, but like if you want a bunch of strangers on the internet to support you, you have to give them something that they want and something they're like, oh, I'm getting a really great deal.
Yeah, and strangers don't know you.
Right.
And strangers actually don't really care about you. The most
they definitely don't.
Yeah. They just want to get what you're selling at the quality that you're selling, at the speed that you can ship it. It's that simple. Okay, so all the products these have, it's a stupid question, but how do you guys, I'm holding this Best Self Intimacy deck. How do you guys use this in your personal life? Not just the intimacy deck, but like the products that you have. How does this help your household?
I mean, for me, so there's a couple of different ways. We have them kind of like around the house. So we have one on our kitchen table. We have one in our bedroom so that like it's there. So we don't have to go look for it. So it's just like removing friction from wanting to do the things that we want to do. And the productivity type stuff, I really am the only one that uses it in my house. And for me, like just structuring my day so it doesn't get away from me is like helps me show up better in the rest of my life. Like days where I'm like, I don't sleep well, I wake up late, I don't get to do like a routine in the morning or look after anything of myself. I'm just kind of like in the chaos of like kids or kid singular. God knows when it's plural.
It feels like multiple. I get it.
Yeah. And so I think for me, it's just like I understand my own operating system and how I show up best. And it's when like I'm being intentional with my time and my day and like getting to stuff for me so I can show up better like for the other people in my life. It's kind of like the plain like oxygen mask first. That's how I treat that stuff. And then the decks, like my daughter's 16 months, so I can like give her a prompt. She does not answer in any, like she doesn't care. But in the future, that's something I want to do, like that you talked about where we do it at dinner time. And a lot of like our customers, they've talked about that. Is like it just sits on their dinner table and their kids actually ask to play it. So I know that when we were kids, like I definitely would have done something like that because I remember when we would drive home from my granda's house, like on Sundays, my dad would like quiz us on like, it would most be on like geography or like random facts. And it got to a point where we were like, can we do a quiz? Like we would be asking for him to do it by the time, and I still remember that. So I'm thinking like that if we had these cards, that would be something I would want.
I love these cards. And I loved how you said earlier too, it's the cards are random when you pull them, hopefully. And so there's no pressure into thinking this is something beyond the actual question.
Yeah.
Like, what do you
And
mean? Why are you asking me this? Like, because the card told me to ask you
yeah,
this.
it's like it just removes a lot of stuff that you didn't even know was there until you started playing the game. And actually, the top of the box is designed so you can put your phone in it, because a lot of people are like, oh, why don't you come out with a phone? A lot of people say like, why don't you come out with a phone app?
Oh my
And
God, it fits.
yeah, why don't you come out with a phone app? And it's just like, because I want people off of their phones,
Yeah.
because phones just remove like there's scientific studies that show, I don't remember the percentage, but it's significant how much a phone, even just being on the table, will
Totally.
remove the intimacy from a conversation.
Yeah, I'm looking at this. The random cards too. I actually started. So I went to Mastermind Talks
Yeah.
many years ago. We're actually going back to Ohio this year, um, and I remember who was I talking to? I can't remember who it was, but they said make sure that when you plug your phone in at night, it's across the room. And so this was back in like 2015. I started plugging my phone in across the room, but guess what? You can still jump out of bed, grab it, and then jump back in bed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not effective. So now I started plugging it in downstairs. What a game changer. Yeah. What
I
a
got
total
a,
game changer.
I got a, this is, will show you my brain. I got a timed lockbox that I will put my phone in sometimes. And it's like 8 hours. I'm like, I can't get it for 8 hours. So like, even if I wake up and like want to pick up my phone, I literally cannot. Um,
That is brilliant.
yeah,
I don't know if I could do that.
yeah, I have one in my office. I have one next to my bed, and I don't use it every night. But I don't know if you've ever like, it's a spiral.
Yeah.
Like I can't sleep, and then suddenly I'm on TikTok,
Yeah.
and it's just it never
Right.
goes well. I always in the moment I'm like, I'm going to regret this tomorrow. Okay, but one more
Totally.
video, and so
Right.
I put in this box. Put a timer on. I'm like, well, can't do anything now. I better go to sleep or like read a
Yeah.
book or like do something off of my phone.
And that's for me why I loved plugging it in downstairs. I mean, yes, I might miss an important phone call, but in my lifetime, knock on wood, there has rarely been a circumstance where someone out of emergency needed to call me at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And
Especially if
like,
your like family is in the house. And if you have an Apple
yeah,
Watch, you can get calls on there.
no, I wear my Oura ring. I just don't. But um, and I had a question about this too. I wanted to double click on about sleeping in. And there, as a woman, especially, we do require more sleep, and especially as mothers and mothers of young kids. That aside, though, is there are days when you know you wake up and you've had a terrible sleep. Does it make sense for you? This is just your perspective to still follow that routine? Like, say you always get out of bed at 5 a.m. Does it make sense for you to get up anyway, or does it make sense for you to sleep in?
I think um, for me personally, if I wake up and I'm feeling like, well, I'll just stay in bed because I know that me getting up and forcing myself to get up just to stick with a routine, I'll regret later. And I'm actually not a good daytime napper. So I know I won't do that. Um, so sometimes like, and usually I'm up, but my wife, like if I'm like, I need to sleep more, like she'll just handle Quinn because I'm always the one that's like, oh, I'll get up and like handle Quinn. But sometimes I'm just like, no, I know I'm going to be a shell of a human being because like the greatest productivity hack is actually just great, like decent sleep.
Totally.
And whenever I disregard that, I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Later in the
I
day, I'm like,
think
why do I feel like
everything
a
I do,
shell? Oh yeah, that.
that's a good point. So everything I do in the day, afternoon, is all based on how good of a sleep I can have that night because that's what's required is the
Yeah.
foundation for a good life is a good night's sleep. And so I know a lot of the things that the products you've produced is to help lower people's stress because like even this intimacy deck, it's like get to know your partner better. Yeah. Let's talk about these things that I was too nervous to talk about. But the whole point is like if you can lower your stress, you'll have better
Yeah.
sleep. It's
And I
like
think creating like little routines, we haven't done it for a bit, but for a while we just like two questions a night and that was it. And then you're also kind of ending the like bookending the day as like a coming together, especially if the day's been especially chaotic.
Yeah. I give once we both jump in bed, Dan always turns to me and he's like, "Okay, I'm ready for it." And I give him the meta report, what like Tony Robbins and Sage talk about as a download, and he knows not to fix anything or coach me, or he just listens and his eyes
Yeah.
start to cross and I'm like, "Okay, you can go to bed now. Thanks for letting me unload." And he's like, "Wow." Cuz in a man's brain, he wants to fix. And I'm
Yeah.
like, blah, 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 blah. I'm like categorizing all these issues. I'm like, "Oh, you know what? I'm good. Thank you."
Yeah.
And he's always like, "Tell me your wins." I'm like, "I'm not telling you my wins. I'm telling you what I'm feeling right now." It's a meta
Right.
report. And then he's like, "Oh my God, in a day, that's what's going through your head." I go, "Oh, you would not
Yeah.
even know."
That's amazing. I think like we do high lows, which is just like your high of the day and the low of the day.
I love that.
But my wife will also try to fix things, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I just want to
Sleep.
explain. I do not want you to try to tell me what I should do in this situation. Because some of the times it's like something that it's like a business thing that I've already, this beaten my head against a wall about for a while. And I don't need advice at this current moment because I'm not also diving into the problem and all the solutions I've already tried. And so sometimes it's like, I'm not looking for advice. I'm just looking to talk.
Yeah. It's like having the weight of an elephant on your shoulder, and you know it'll be relieved if you just kind of talk about it. It's the same thing with journaling, because
Yeah.
journaling allows you to get those thoughts out of your mind and onto paper. And you look back at the patterns, you're like, "Wow, I can't believe I thought that way."
Mm,
But it definitely helps. And you don't have to go circle back and solve the issues. Maybe the issue's solved by just talking about it.
yeah.
That's it. Get it off your chest. I love it. Okay. I have one more question for you. When I ask you what it means to be a wild woman, what is that to you?
For me, that just means being bold, not caring what other people think, and just doing you. I think women are, I mean, I just saw the Barbie movie, and there's so many contradictions of like our lives. And I've also seen how I've kind of fallen into that in the past of like just like judgment for one thing or the other. And now I'm just like, I disregard that. And I'm like, everyone's doing the best with what they have. And women are judged like so harshly, literally on anything that they do. And so now when I see someone like doing something bold and they get criticized for it, and it's not even that bold, it's just like doing what they want to do in a way that hurts no one else. So like, yeah, that to me is like a wild woman in the best sense of the term.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that too, because part of what I do, especially in PR, is to encourage women to just be more bold. And they worry about their identity or shifting their identity. They worry what people think. We all worry about what people think, but it only really matters to those that matter.
Yeah.
And I mean, you are an incredibly amazing, thoughtful, beautiful human being. I can imagine that there's crap people say about you. And I like when we see these things, I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
It's like, why? The reality is those people are hurting. They're
Right.
hurting and it has
And they
nothing to
don't
do with you.
matter. Like people that are
They
doing
don't.
things of impact are not, they don't care
They don't.
about what you're doing except to like cheer you on, be like, oh, I thought that was cool. And
Yeah.
so I think just um taking time to like, if you see someone like going through a hard time or they're just doing them, like cheering them on, like fire emoji their Instagram, like whatever it is, I
Yeah.
think just like that. So I'll definitely take the time and make sure like, oh, I see what you're doing, even if I don't connect with someone a ton. I just want them to be like, oh, I feel what you're doing and I appreciate you for showing up the way you are.
Yes. I love it.
And
Okay.
also sharing like when things aren't working. Like Renee, I know that you just went through a bunch of stuff with the fire, and like I also a few months ago I remember you were having struggles with this new puppy and your kids, and I like love hearing when people are like real on social, but like, oh, this, like, you don't just post the good stuff. It's like I'm actually struggling right now with what's going
Mhm.
on, and that's actually when people can really connect with you as a human being, because nobody's connecting with someone that's everything is bright, cheery, and happy all the time.
No, it's true. The puppy struggle is real. Holy moly. But I love my dog now. Now I get it. I've never lived with a dog before, so there was that learning curve as well.
Yeah.
Um, I appreciate that. And I think it is important that we share what we're comfortable with too. But we also need to, when we talk about sharing online, is we need to share the content we know our audience needs to hear. And
Yeah.
sometimes that makes it uncomfortable for you. And so for me sharing about the puppy, before I posted this story months ago about having the puppy blues, I was like, people are going to think I'm a whiner or I'm not strong enough and I can't deal with this. But I got so many compliments and people saying, hey, I've been through this before too. Here's what we did. And I got so much great advice because
Hmm.
people were like, whoa, I feel you, girl.
Yeah,
Having a puppy is like having a newborn baby. It's not easy.
I've been
Um,
there.
yeah, I know.
And I
Being a
also
wife,
have been with a newborn. I remember struggling like, oh my God, this is my life now? Your like life from before is gone. I can't just like leave the house anymore without it becoming like,
an event.
yeah, an event. I look like a baggage horse with all the stuff I have to bring now. I suddenly like I
Right?
would walk out with my phone. I can't do that anymore. And so and then also just like I I felt for a long time and now I talk about it more openly. It's just like I love being a mom, but I also have my own like ambition and dreams and things I want to do. And that's not like being at home all day with my baby. Like I love the presence, but having like a daycare situation has actually allowed me to become a better parent because I'm no longer trying to do two things at one time.
Mhm.
I'm like when I'm on here, I'm on, and when I'm with her, like I'm with her, and it's just given me a lot more peace and like
Totally.
calm in my
It's
life.
like we don't need permission to live our lives how we want it. So if you
Yeah.
want to work all day and be like, why do we have to ask for permission? It's silly. Um, I love this conversation. We've covered so much, and I think it's been super helpful. So tell us where people can go to find you online.
Yeah, so you can, if you've liked any of the products I talked about, you can go to bestself.co. And then I have a personal blog called littlemight.com where I just talk about business, lessons, um, things that I'm working on.
I
Uh,
love it.
yeah.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Renee. It was so good to finally connect.